Thanks for tuning in today. So, there's a little bit of tension in the air. It's November 5th, and as most of you know, we have elections in the United States of America, and there's a big presidential election happening this year, like it does every 4 years. And there seems to be a lot of anxiety around who might be taking office and other issues. So I thought I should probably start talking about the relationship between our thoughts, our emotional state, and the health of our cells and mitochondria. So I came across Dr. Martin Picard. I don't know if you've heard of him, but they do a lot of study in mitochondrial health, and it's actually he's part of the Mitochondrial Psychobiology Lab, and they kind of introduce themselves in this notion that they say energy is the force that brings the genomic, molecular, and cellular hardware of the brain body system to life. Energy flow regulates brain activity and gives rise to the human experience. It sustains health and underlies our ability to heal, adapt, and thrive in the face of challenges. So that's kind of their main theme. A lot of what they're doing is they're looking at neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and trying to figure out what happens in the brain in order for people to actually manifest that disease. So I was reading through some of their studies and I actually kind of chuckled to myself because one of them, the summary was what you think about Tuesday night determines the emotional state of Wednesday. Anyway, I just thought that was ironic. I don't know if they did this study on purpose, that they measured the emotional state of people on a Tuesday night to see how they would feel on a Wednesday, like because elections are always on Tuesday, or maybe it was just a coincidence. But anyway, it was a interesting study, where they found, as we're not surprised, that how you think and your emotional state of the night before is going to determine, actually flavor the whole day. And then actually what they did is they looked at blood markers of mitochondrial activity. We talked about mitochondria as being sort of the organelle, the functioning aspect of the cell. Every human cell has mitochondria, actually has hundreds, probably thousands in each cell. So you've got 37 trillion cells roughly. And you've got hundreds to thousands of mitochondria in those cells. And this is what drives your energy. And this is what drives your immune system. This is in all the hormonal processes of your body. So it's taking inputs from your environment and it's changing the way that your body reacts chemically based on what it can pick up. So we talked a lot about how light affects that, all the different light waves send different messages, and then you get sort of like these chemical reactions in the body. Well, those are pretty much regulated by mitochondria. So mitochondrial health is a very, very important aspect of health. So we need to, really think about what can we do? What's in our power to actually affect the environment around us? Well, it turns out that a lot of the environment around us is how we think it is. Like, have you ever been afraid of something and then your body change, you can feel the chemical change, like you're frightened, and for a second your heart rate goes up and you might get sweaty and your breathing changes and everything changes and you're like, oh no. And then all of a sudden the threat is gone, like it wasn't, an actual frightening situation, you were just startled. Well, then all that comes back down to like homeostasis, or when things are functioning optimally. So we know, like, it didn't matter that the threat was real or the threat wasn't real. It just mattered what you thought in that moment. So there's a part of our brain called the amygdala, and it's like right in the middle of the brain, and it is always looking for danger. It's on alert. It's going to tell you when there's danger. Well, there's other parts of our brain that can mitigate that really highly reactive stress part. And those are like the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex. The hippocampus, it's more kind of like the the counselor saying, okay, but is it really the environment you're in is threatening? You know, how a counselor will kind of talk you off a ledge. The hippocampus does a really good job of like stating what's really true in the environment. And then the prefrontal cortex, it's the manager. It's saying, okay, you know what, you're overreacting here, and it'll start to reason with you about, even if the threat is true, we know this is good and you can focus on that. So we want all of our brain to be functioning, and we want to make sure we're not kind of stuck in a pattern of a highly reactive amygdala type response in life, because we are literally sending out stress chemicals when our thinking is that way. So I want to bring this back into how we're responding or reacting to the current political climate. And, you know, a lot of it is probably media driven, whether it's social media or legacy media or whatever. We hear our stories, and we actually can thrive on, you know, these high intensity emotions like anger or frustration, because it gives us energy. It makes us feel like I'm alive. I have something to care about and fight for. And so, you know, there's kind of an addiction that can take place. And we haven't really talked a lot about how that also plays into things like blue light, or our artificial light, or the screen, you know, the LCD screens that we talked about. That type of light, it's like a high. It's kind of addictive, because it's like why we like to drink coffee, or, you know, have some kind of stimulant. It's stimulating. So if we're not careful, if we're not like bringing our thoughts down to a level that actually helps us be at peace, we're going to run amok in our chemistry, because we're always going to be on these stress, stress, stress. There's danger, you know, I can't trust that person, everything's bad, and da, da, da. And that is not going to be good long term. Like this one other study that the Dr. Picard and his associates put together. Their title is Brain Health is Rooted in the State of Mind. And then it goes on to say, we find that mitochondria in the brain are like antenna, picking up molecular and hormonal signals and transmitting information to the cell nucleus. Okay, so again, it's like sensing what's going on. Your hormones are signaling, your different, you know, all the chemicals in your body are signaling, and then all of a sudden you're transmitting that information back to the mitochondria like a feedback loop. And so what they're saying is that that information is changing the life course of each cell. I mean, it can actually create what's apoptosis, which is programmed cell death. It can actually exacerbate cell death. You can kill your own cells with the wrong kind of stress response. So they're kind of seeing this is what's happening in Alzheimer's. People are getting stuck in a negative loop or a stress response, and it's basically sending a signal out to the mitochondria within the cell that, okay, we need to self-destruct right now. So you can see how important this is. And I just want, I don't want to incite more fear. I know there's enough tension going on, but I just want us to be in control of our thoughts and our emotions, so that we can actually have a healthy body as well. So like, I was reading in Matthew chapter 6, and let me read this to you. I think it's from the New Living Translation. And this is really talking about money, but forget that for a second. It's chapter 6, Matthew chapter 6, verse 22 through 23. Your eye is like a lamp that provides light for your body. So here's the light thing again. When your eye is healthy, your whole body is filled with light. But when your eye is unhealthy, your whole body is filled with darkness. And if the light you think you have is actually darkness, how deep that darkness is. Okay, so what would be the eye? And in this, the eye being a lamp. To me, that's like, where is your focus? Okay, you're going to get the light or the darkness from whatever you focus on. Like if I look at something, if it's emitting light, I can see it. If it's not, I can't so much, right? So what we put our focus on is where we are going to basically get our energy. And if we want to be in the light, if we want to have life within ourselves, we need to understand that how we focus is going to determine what's going on, not just in our mind, not just in our emotions, but in our physiology as well. So here's another reminder from Romans chapter 12, and this is actually the Passion Translation. And it says, stop imitating the ideals and opinions of the culture around you, but be inwardly transformed by the Holy Spirit through a total reformation of how you think. This will empower you to discern God's will. I want to stop there because, a lot of times we get stuck in negative loops because we feel like we don't know what to do. We're afraid of the future. We don't, what if? And it's saying right here that if you are transformed by the Holy Spirit, how you think, when it's transformed by the Holy Spirit, it will empower you to discern God's will. And then it says, as you live a beautiful life, satisfying and perfect in God's eyes. I mean, that's a pretty lovely goal, right? So there's also some instructions that Paul gives us in Philippians chapter 4, starting with verse 6, and I'll probably read down to through 8-ish. Don't be pulled in different directions or worried about a thing. Be saturated in prayer throughout each day, offering your faith-filled requests before God, overflowing with gratitude. Tell him every detail of your life. So when we're having anxiety, we have the Holy Spirit to talk to. Okay. If things are coming up that just seem dire, we have the ability to communicate with God through the Holy Spirit. I mean, that's pretty cool. Then God's wonderful peace that transcends human understanding will guard your heart and mind through Jesus Christ. Keep your thoughts continually fixed on all that is authentic and real, honorable and admirable, beautiful and respectful, pure and holy, merciful and kind, and fasten your thoughts on every glorious work of God. So if our physiology is going to function based on our thoughts, just think if we were to take Paul's advice here, this is Paul the Apostle, to keep our thoughts fixed on what is real and honorable and admirable and beautiful and so on, how that would actually bring life to ourselves. So I just wanted to share that with you and get you to think about that for a minute. And thank you for joining today. And I hope to see you next time.